Hey everybody, welcome to another LinkedIn Live from the Gravity Legal team. I'm Dan Lear. I'm here with my colleague Emery Wager. Hey, Emery.
Hey Dan.
And so last time I think we this would have been back in the summer. We chatted about you and I chatted, and also we chatted generally
Mhm.
with whomever it is that's out there listening about doing this on more on the regular. And we've finally kind of gotten organized and are in a position to start doing that. So this will be the first of a weekly series where we'll be getting on together and just talking for a few minutes about a project that we've been working on. And we might have mentioned this project last time, but I'll do a quick recap and then we'll dive in. We're not going to spend a ton of time today. We'll just give you a quick update on where we are, and that plans to be kind of our the expectation for us for this as we move forward every Friday. So as we may have mentioned, but as a quick recap, we at Gravity Legal are well, and I'll go even one level higher. We fundamentally and increasingly believe that the best way for lawyers and law firms to get paid to kind of improve the payments experience for their clients and also candidly for their firm and their employees is to integrate those payments into a kind of payments workflow. And the best way to do that, in our opinion, is to kind of leverage an embedded payments offering through your legal case management system. And so over the last few months, we've been interviewing the leaders of a wide variety of different case management systems and posting those interviews on our website and beginning to build out kind of an ecosystem of different interviews and information profiles really of these case management systems to help encourage lawyers to understand, because that's one of the biggest questions we get is what practice management system should I use? What case management system should I use? And so our goal is to begin to build a resource so that as folks begin to choose what they want, they are also ensuring that their payments are integrated into those systems. So that's kind of how this all marries together for us. And this week, Emery, we released an episode with Matt Bright from Intuit or QuickBooks. And people may not think about QuickBooks as there's a few ways, and I talked about this on the podcast. Maybe that's a good way for us to kind of talk about this. There are kind of three ways that we see lawyers using QuickBooks. One is kind of as a standalone accounting system, side by side with their case management system. One is integrated into their case management system. And the third, and maybe the one where we should spend the most time, but I'll stop talking, Emery, and let you opine on this here in a minute. The third is we see firms, and we actually have a number of fairly large clients who use QuickBooks as their case management system. I guess, Emery, I'll toss it to you for a minute. Do you think those are the most common ways? Is there something I'm kind of forgetting? And then maybe you have an opinion about how we should spend the next few minutes. Which of those we ought to talk about?
No, I think the pretty much everything fits into one of those three categories, and I don't know. It's probably a pretty close competition between QuickBooks and maybe the Microsoft Office suite as to what software is most prevalent among the small and mid-sized law firm market. So it's probably the piece of software we see firms using the most, and it does. I mean, there are plenty of firms that have really leaned into QuickBooks and use it basically as their kind of CRM and practice management system in a completely standalone capacity. And of course, you know, there's there's some limitations there, but these firms run fairly effectively with just that, that piece of software.
And maybe let's take that one first, because to me that was maybe one of the most surprising kind of things that we learned, especially given the abundance of kind of legal case management systems that are out there. Um, and I know well, actually, you are a QuickBooks certified
Pro Advisor.
pro advisor. Yeah, exactly. So I should really be deferring to you here. But maybe let's talk for a minute about what it looks like for the firms that we've seen using QuickBooks as a standalone case management system, really without any other significant case management system. Kind of
Mhm.
What are the pros? What are the cons of that? What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I think it basically it allows you to create client records and customize those client records. It allows you to bill and invoice. You can track time in QuickBooks, so you can do a lot of those things. I think it's pretty limiting is in there's not a lot of sort of matter management
Mm,
happening, and you're definitely not kind of moving QuickBooks clients along kind of a workflow. It's pretty lacking in the intake area. So it's kind of
yeah,
there's
CRM I
yeah
think is a gap for them for sure.
document management, in kind of email document integration, going to those client records. And then the gap that we fill is allowing payments to be deposited into any different account, which QuickBooks standalone doesn't allow you to do that. Um, so yeah, there's definitely some limitations, but if you don't need robust solutions in those areas, then it can be a great option, and certainly allows for having one less piece of software.
Yeah, I think kind of as I think about it, the firms who we see using QuickBooks at kind of really standalone are often, though not exclusively, kind of flat fee firms where there's unlikely to be a lot of ongoing billing. So the time tracking, while QuickBooks does have that, it like you don't need it to be rock solid and kind of lawyer centric.
Mhm.
Um, and then yeah, I think the other oh shoot, I forgot my other I thought the other aspect of those firms. Anyway, I think that's yeah, that's certainly the main one where they feel like they can get away with that.
Mhm.
Yeah, just more of kind of a flat fee type
Yeah.
of approach. Oh, that's the other thing I was gonna say. And we'll give a shout out here as we round home in a couple minutes to our partner Lean Law, who I think gives you a great marriage of these two. But the
Mhm.
other thing that I often see with a lot of the case management systems and QuickBooks is that they don't sync very effectively.
Mhm.
And so a lot of law firms end up really with kind of this tug of war, this power struggle in terms of kind of which system is their source of truth.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense that they would want QuickBooks to be the source of truth because like that's where the money is.
Mhm.
Um, but for a firm that really wants to commit to QuickBooks as the source of truth without any other kind of conflicting information or challenges in syncing, I think that's the other type of firm that would really sort of, that like, was it Snoop Dogg who said, "With my mind on my money and my money on my mind"? Like, for those firms who like, are constantly thinking about that and really, really want that tight visibility, I think that's another place where QuickBooks really shines.
Yeah, or and some of that comes out of a negative experiences where they did have a bad
Right.
integration, and they're just frustrated, and so they reverted back to hey, we're just going to do everything directly in QuickBooks and not worry about that.
And it does have, I mean, QuickBooks has invoicing features. To your point, it's got some time tracking. So there are a lot of kind of pieces that you can bolt on, or really that are even
Mhm.
offered through the QuickBooks ecosystem, like the Intuit ecosystem, without even looking at their partners like us, where you can get a lot done. So it's quite powerful.
Yeah.
Let's turn and talk for a minute about we can talk about Lean Law because I gave them a shout out,
Yeah.
but maybe about how we see firms using QuickBooks integrated. I think you said it nicely. Like maybe short of the Microsoft Office ecosystem, there's no other platform that we see more often. Law firms
Mhm.
telling us they use kind of even like we said standalone or integrated into their case management systems. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. And this is not a necessarily a new thing, but something that I've just kind of come to this realization recently. There's sort of like two categories of integration. There's, you know, basically what you'd normally think of an integration, a one or two-way sync between two systems, but there's also seems to be this kind of growing community of, I'll call it built on. So
Mhm.
instead
Mm.
of an
Yeah.
integration, actually using um, kind of this sort of parent application as the source of truth. And it's not storing the data, that parent application is storing the data. So it's really more of like a window into that as opposed to an integration. And that can be incredibly powerful. I mean, Lean Law, I think, is a great example. Lean Law is built on QuickBooks. So a lot of the data that's exposed in Lean Law is actually QuickBooks data. So you're not worried about syncing necessarily between two systems. It's basically a window and access into QuickBooks that really turbocharges it for the legal space and provides a lot of kind of an additional value and makes it, it's a great option for the attorneys who are using it to only be in Lean Law, simple, easy, and they don't have to be in QuickBooks. Systems like Apona, for example, which is built on Microsoft SharePoint, using kind of a best-in-class Microsoft tool as sort of the document management and just giving firms a more legal specific window into that. Another would be like Litify, built on Salesforce. You can't separate those two. It's built on as opposed to integrated with. So I think that's an important distinction that lawyers looking for new software should consider. Is this an integration or is it built on? And what are the pros and cons of those two different setups?
Totally. And I want to give just a quick shout out to there are other case management systems that do integrate with QuickBooks, but kind of don't think about it the same way as Lean Law, but still either kind of excel in places that Lean Law doesn't, or kind of take a different approach that we work really closely with. So shout out Lawkiss, shout out Matter 365. Are there others at least that we know that Lawmatics integrates with QuickBooks?
Mm-hmm.
So there are definitely other options. There are a lot of different ways to approach this, and yeah, we'll have to save your built-on comment for a whole nother LinkedIn Live. So tune in later, folks. We'll come back to that one because I think that's a whole nother conversation. In our last couple minutes, let's just talk about kind of the third category, which is the first one I mentioned, which is kind of using case management and QuickBooks separately. And candidly, like given my spiel at the top about how we think everything should be in one place, like this is not the way we'd recommend you do it. But we know there are a lot of firms who do that. The thing that comes to mind for me is a lot of those firms, I think, want to leverage maybe an outside QuickBooks consultant, right? And that person is making sure that the source of truth is in QuickBooks and that it aligns with what's happening in some other practice management system. But thoughts on that? Kind of what have you seen there? Why might folks approach things that way?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think most of the time the line is sort of drawn in the firm. Does the firm want client by client information in QuickBooks? And if the answer is yes, I want to see each client in QuickBooks, then you either need to pursue kind of the first two options, the integrated or using QuickBooks as a practice management. Most of the time, when they're using QuickBooks as a standalone accounting system, they don't really care about, the person that revenue was generated from.
Right.
They're more caring about, different maybe practice area categories or something that you can easily export from your case management and hand to your accountant on a monthly basis and have them kind of input those things. So yeah, I think it's most used in that capacity when there's not a need for client level data in QuickBooks.
Cool. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. We just wanted to spend a few quick minutes with you folks today, and I would second what Emery said. And again, I think there's an entire other discussion about why you might not, and whether it's the wisdom of not going into client level. But we won't go into that today. As we sign off, I just wanted to point folks to the kind of the resources that we've created around this particular project that I mentioned. You can find those at gravity-legal.com/LCM. That's where we're doing all of those posting all those case management interviews. And weekly, we'll be adding new systems to that resource. So go and check that out. You can also book time with us there, I believe there, right, Emery? To have a consult with us about which platform might be right for you. Of course, we're somewhat biased in this, but we like to think of ourselves as at least more honest brokers, if not honest brokers of information in this space, trying to help law firms answer that question, which we know is increasingly a challenging one. And there's often so many things that folks don't like about their case management platforms, but they don't know where to go. And so it's fun for us to help folks kind of troubleshoot and problem solve in that space. Anything you'd add before we wrap up, Emery?
Um, Also, the only thing is that on that page, there's a little worksheet that you can fill out and get some
Okay.
recommendations too. Or even if you just look at the worksheet, you can, give you some ideas in terms of what to look for in a new system.
Awesome. Uh, well, this is fun, Emery. We're now committed doing this every week, so we will see everybody next week with some more kind of thoughts on this evolving ecosystem. But appreciate folks tuning in, and Emery, good to chat, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Have a good weekend.
Bye, everybody.